called our stakeholders to order in that letter. Yeah.
And there has also been an accusation that NUP provokes police. In some ways, they provoke the violence.
I don't know.
The Electoral Commission also.
I don't know. We've had conversations, serious. I'm using the word conversations, but these are meetings to discuss why some nasty situations have come onto the screens, and we've brought in police leadership at operation level, the commanders, together with candidates' agents, including NUP. And we've tried to go deeper into those issues. Why are we failing to achieve what we set out to do when we harmonized our program? So in those conversations, we've gone into the specifics, what happened, where, and what led to it. And of course, making a commitment to see that it doesn't happen again. So I may not give a specific incidences, but you've seen in the media, because these have been open to the public to see, we've called to order our stakeholders. We want candidates to be able to reach the voters, but also want them to do it in accordance with the guidelines we issued. But we also want law enforcement to facilitate candidates to achieve that objective of reaching their supporters. And that's why we meet them regularly when there are issues of concern.
Yeah. And a final question to you before we have a roundtable discussion. What's happening with the Electoral Commission disqualifying opposition members at this late stage? You seem to be disqualifying so many. You know the nomination process was so elaborate, and now some people would say the Electoral Commission is looking bad if it is denominating people that they nominated after careful consideration.
I think what we did, I wouldn't want to say we are disqualifying. What we are doing is to hear.
The new word that has come.
No, we are not even denominating. What we are doing.
Registering.
Yes,
in some cases.
I think, Oscar, what has been happening over since the closure of nominations is hearing and determining complaints arising out of the nomination. And they've gone either way. Oscar, and I've not moved with the figures. Some complaints have been to the effect that I was not nominated while I qualified. And the commission has heard and determined those. And in some instances, the commission has said, nominate someone. So that is, I think, something that probably has not achieved much publicity, but that has happened. We have reviewed decisions of returning officers in accordance with our power as Electoral Commission. And where the matter has been heard, and hearing these complaints, my brother here is a lawyer, you look at facts and evidence. So where the commission has heard and determined the matter, it has decided that nominate so-and-so, or you denied so-and-so right to be nominated, please proceed. The commission has nominated candidates. But at the same time, there are also incidences where the commission has set aside a decision of a returning officer and declared a nomination null and void because it has been heard and determined that way, based on the evidence and the facts presented and in accordance with the commission's power. So it has gone either way. We nominated 83,000 polling candidates countrywide, 83,500 and plus candidates from at parliamentary level from 17 political parties. My brother here knows that at parliamentary level, for example, for the direct elected member of parliament, which are 353, I think, NUP we successfully nominated about 200 candidates for that elective position, successfully nominated, for direct members of parliament. I have some figures here, 220 from National and Unity Platform, successfully nominated. Now, if someone comes and presents a petition and it is heard and determined like that, then that is that's how it has been presented. But it's not because the Electoral Commission has set out to denominate candidates. No, we nominated them in the first place. But if the nomination is challenged and successfully so, then that's how it has been determined, and then it goes to the next level. But there are also cases where the commission has upheld the decision of the returning officer involving candidates from, and for us at the Electoral Commission, I really don't want to even talk about oppositions, my word. We have candidates. I call them candidates. We nominated 2,025 parliamentary candidates from 17 political parties. Now, if a complaint is against someone from whichever party, these are all our parties. They are on our roll. These are all our candidates from presidential up to sub-county. I find it hard to start conversing, having a conversation like this one, the opposition, because me, I'm electoral commission. These are all candidates.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Gordon Toko, you even had questions before the man had
So the first thing is that I think he prevaricated a bit, and I have a lot of respect for him. I should first declare my bias that there was a time when I had just left university. I was writing a paper consultancy, and he's the only one in government who gave me an interview. So I have a lot of respect for Paul Bukenya. Now that out of the way, let's get back to the gang. So the chairperson of the Electoral Commission made the statement that people should leave polling stations after election
and go home.
The letter asked him to clarify. The letter asked him to clarify. Then he said, "Yeah, it mentioned one random polling station. Said there are thousands. What if all of them stayed?" Now, it's for a chairperson of the Electoral Commission to even think that everyone can vote is first of all ridiculous. Then everyone votes and stays. So he used that to push the narrative, which I found to be very, very erroneous. Yeah. So I just had to put that back to Paul Bukenya that yes, your chairperson. You seem to be at different wavelengths with your chairperson right now, because you're saying people can stay and he's saying people should go home. So which is which? And because he said that, he gave credibility to the armed people who have guns and batons and sticks, who have now run away with that. They're telling everyone that if you don't go home, we'll deal with you. There is a comment made by the police spokesperson Chituma on Twitter where someone said, "For me, I'll stay." Then he said, "You stay and you'll see, you'll feel our wrath." Something to that effect. So it's out there. Now to the issue of
I tried to invite him today, but
it's hard to. I organized space to Fagora. There are people you'll never get. So we got used to that. Now, to the issue of the unopposed candidates. So there are like 3 or 4 categories. The first category is the people who were nominated because no other candidate was filled. I think the lady Narua, there are about 7 of them, and most of them happen to be NRM. Yeah. So because NRM has been in power for long and all that, that is easily explained. 2, there is a group of people who were nominated and then their opponents voluntarily withdrew. So I think in that category, you put people like the vice president. Her opponent voluntarily withdrew and said, for me, we've settled our issues. Right. So it doesn't matter what happened behind the scenes. If it is them doing it publicly, that's okay. Now, there is a third group, the problematic group. In that category, the one that I would have wished Paul to speak about are people who are nominated. Take the example of Bukenya. People are nominated to stand against the woman MP of Bukenya, who is the Speaker of Parliament. And then all of a sudden, a complaint is raised that, they don't even vote from here. Now, legally speaking, I can go and stand anywhere. I don't have to be a person nominated at in that particular area. A popular example is the one of Katinti. Katinti, who was defeated by Bobby Wine, I don't know if you remember, in 2017, was not even registered in Chadondo East as a voter, but he ran in that constituency, and it was legal. Now, here, they complained that, these ladies are not from this area. What the Electoral Commission did, shockingly, was to deregister them. To say that you're no longer going to vote at all in the elections. So they were all deregistered and the speaker was declared unopposed. Of course, for context, could even say that similar things happened even in the NRM primaries. Yeah, they brought the bad habits of the NRM spilled over into the national elections. Yeah, and the Electoral Commission chairperson, Paul Bukenya's boss, signed on that. Okay, there's no difference. Anyway, let's go with that. So next you have the speaker's uncle. Similar stuff. Declared unopposed because the people. And you're thinking, guys, there is a law. Why aren't you following the law? And just yesterday, the opponent, who happened to be the opponent of the speaker's husband, Magogo, is declared unopposed. The opponent is disqualified because allegedly they didn't attach their certificate of resignation. Now, the law says you can resign anytime between 90 days to the election date, to the nomination date. This gentleman resigned last year. Someone counted, I think it was Speaker Kadaga who counted. I don't know what Kadaga's interest is in this matter, but she said it's about 500 and something days. So this gentleman resigned. 550 days before the 90. Yeah, like if they wanted 90, he could give them several 90s of those days. But now the accusation is that he didn't attach the date of resignation. What should have been the right procedure is that if you thought he didn't resign, you either ask his authority, the superior authority, that this gentleman resigned, or ask him that, do you have proof of resignation? Yeah, which he had, because he shared it eventually. Even then, people shared this. So I think the Electoral Commission has become a victim. When you hear Noop taking those lines, it's because there is distrust. The commission will look on as people are being brutalized and say, oh, because they're the procession. Duncan Abigaba here, our brother, our very good brother, and I like Duncan so much, has had a procession across, he said 33 districts, drinking coffee, stopping at the road wherever, and organizing. I was in Mukono one time. I think you guys started with Mukono. I so happened to be at a restaurant in Mukono. So when they were passing through Mukono, they stopped right in the middle of Mukono. Bebe Cool got on top of the car and started singing. I was like, just imagine Noop did 1/3 of what these guys have done. The whole place would be tear gassed. Probably there would even be a loss of life. So
I once saw Duncan Abigaba's post saying when they were on the streets of Fort Porto.
Yes.
And he said we've only used one lane. It was an Abigaba post. We've only used one lane, which was true. So you left the other lane.
That's
interesting. Yeah, and then finally, for me, the other thing about the election is this argument that they are designated routes for the opposition to use. It is very problematic. Yeah, because why must you tell me where to pass? It is a national activity. The commission says candidate X should be in Nebi today. It should be up to them where to use whatever route to get to Nebi. Yeah,
Quickly,
as quickly as possible, because the police is very partisan. You've seen police officers campaigning. You've seen the chief of defense forces saying things about it. So what is going to happen is you're going to have partisan police officers saying use the other route, well knowing that that route is long, well knowing that that route could pass through a game park and the alliance there, so you end up making another servo story because we've got election. So there is malice on in this idea of saying that we're going to choose for you routes to use. So I think the premise of this election is that there is distrust with institutions like the police and the commission, and that's why we are where we are today.
Okay, Duncan Abigail.
Thank you, Oscar. Talk of the processions you have seen and what Oscar saw on X, the Unstoppable Caravan. I'm going to give you a scenario. The Unstoppable Caravan wanted to set off from Kampala on Monday the 26th of October, and it never did. It set off on the 27th, a day later, because security had not given us clearance. We wrote to the IGP, informed him of what we intended to do, and the IGP said we must hold on until he has consulted with his team to see if what we wanted to do was feasible, and then he could authorize. So what we have been doing is there is no single place we have gone to without police clearance. Number one. Number two, we can account for whoever is on our caravan, in the vehicles or even the border as you have seen. We have I will come to that. We have an advance team that goes to a press and identifies, registers the borders we are going to use, and we submit that record to security. In case there is a problem, there is accountability. Yes, my brother Katana can accuse me of the numbers are not organic, and this is where he's having a problem. He wants to stop in a market with his candidate, and there are 1,000 people in the market, and probably most of the youth will jump on the drive. You don't know who is on the drive, who has jumped on the drive. People's property is going to be destroyed. People's property is going to be stolen. There is no accountability. This is the fight you're having with security and the Electoral Commission. If you are structured like we have been, if you can organize your drives, you can account for whoever is there, I'm sure security will not have a problem with you. People have raised a lot of issues, starting with Prof here, Serunkuuma.
For now, I want you to address Paul Bukenya is saying, because some people have been saying vote and go home, and he seems to say the law will be followed.
And like Bukenya has said, this is not the first time we are voting. We have always voted and went home.
No.
Yes.
No, there have been unexpressed order that vote and go home.
Yes. Okay, I'm coming. People have always voted in my village. Okay, that I'm familiar with. People vote, go to do their work, And by the way, I should put it on record that I come from the same village with Katana. So I'm very sure that even the dynamics on his polling station, which are our polling stations are around, I think, like 4 kilometers apart. I'm very sure even his polling station, the situation is similar. People vote, they go home, do their work. Some go to the garden, some go where. In the evening, they reconvene for counting.
Out of their own volition.
Yes. They convene for counting.
It's their choice.
It is their choice.
It should be their choice. That's what I'm saying.
Even if you want to misquote the CDF or whoever, there's nobody who has said you go home. No, there's nobody who has said vote.
I'll get
go
to the
home,
videos.
Don't come back for vote counting. There's nobody who has said that. Do not crowd the polling station. You vote peacefully. Go home. You can come back.
Okay.
For counting.
And if I understand,
and the Attorney General,
if I understand,
Toko is a lawyer. Benjamin is a lawyer. They can guide us here. Who is the supreme? The CDF, the chairman of the EC, the Attorney General.
The CDF.
Because the Attorney General has come out and guided. No, the Attorney General clearly is.
Where do you live?
has guided and said that he came out and made a statement on the floor and said, no, people can vote and stay. So that should not be an issue. It should not be an issue. It's not an issue.
And then on NRM inheriting all these unopposed positions.
I would have been happier if Bukenya had given us one position where they have nominated someone who had been unfairly not nominated during the nomination process. Because this has been a problem. People are saying, yes, many people are becoming unopposed.
In favor of NRM.
In favor of NRM, yes. Yet there are people who had...
Toko has made further allegations, as you had.
And people have been making allegations, including our elder brother, Akena, who have sit here, where Bukenya actually seated, saying that he was not nominated fairly for the presidential race. So it would have been fair if Poro had given us at least one position where they have nominated someone after the nomination process has closed to balance this. Yes, there have been presses, I think, in maybe Bukedia. I don't know now if is it Budiope?
Serunkuuma.
I don't know if Budiope now is unopposed. Honorable Moses Magogo is unopposed.
Yeah.
Churauma MP?
Yes. And then there's the vice president. I think that should be. That place is called what? Anyway, but the vice president.
But you see,
and
I
Deputy
think.
Speaker?
Yes, deputy speaker as well, unopposed.
I think this matter can be looked at case by case, because the factors that led to the unopposed candidate of Honorable Nyamutoro in Nebi are different from the factors that led to the unopposed candidate of the vice president in Katakwi. Different. That's what I said. Different factors, yes. So I think we should study the subject further to see how are these people becoming unopposed. There has been an issue of usually the seconders or nominators. I don't know, the 20 people. You see, before we never had the national ID, and somebody could just sign and the system, the electoral commission system was not synchronized with the NIRA system, which my brother Katana worked so hard to build when he was in internal affairs. He knows there is synchronization of these systems. Now, if you use a wrong, a fake NIN number in electoral commission, if you're nominating me and use a wrong number, electoral commission will easily flag it because they have a database for the whole country. So all these are factors. People before we are not using these NINs. Now we have an integrated database system that you can easily red flag a fake NIN, and that alone will have you disqualified. And this is how most of the opponents of NRM people have been disqualified.
Yeah, but
not most. Not most.
No, most it has
like
been on the NIN numbers of the nominators or seconders.
The bigger question, of course, was why now? Because these nominations took place September, October.
Yes.
You know, and that is checkable. I thought actually when they were nominating and looking at their computers, that's what they were doing.
Why now is the Electoral Commission can answer that question? They are here because when somebody petitions, yes. There is a fair hearing for
petition.
all the parties.
All right.
The petitioner and the respondent. There is time, a month or so, to go through meeting seat, tribunal seat, before a conclusion is reached. That's why when Electoral Commission receives the petition today, tomorrow you know you're denominated. No, there is a process.
Yusuf Serunkuuma.
Oscar, you know, one of the fascinating things for me in this election is that Bobi Wine is being pushed and anticipated for things he cannot articulate. Now, the incumbent and his entire machine is so afraid of Bobi Wine for things he cannot say. And I want to say this because I want to say at the end of this submission that the vote and go home is not for the villages of where Abigawa comes from or Katana. It's for Kampala. It's not for everybody. When they say vote and go home, there are people in Sabay vote and go home. They don't care about those people. That is specifically for Kampala. Okay, it's for maybe Uganda. They could stretch it. The biggest fear in this election is that Bobi Wine's supporters, not Bobi Wine himself, might force him, might inspire him, or challenge him to say, why are we participating in this predetermined thing? Let's just march to State House. And the funny part is that the incumbent, the system around the incumbent, is more prepared than for this possibility than actual electioneering. They're not scared of Bobi Wine beating them at the vote. No, because they're in charge of the counting. This man here, Goodwin, made a submission where he said there's the EC and the NRM. There's no difference because Museveni has powers to even sack the chair of the Electoral Commission on election day and to be legal. Because we operate with an electoral commissioner, the chief who is not protected. You know, there's no protection because Museveni appointed him, he can sack him. And to say this, in the last election, 3 months to the election, in fact, in the thick of an election, Museveni ordered the sacking of about 4 senior people in the electoral commission. And very recently as well. So he can even sack the chair of the electoral commission and it will be within the law. So what they are most scared of is the possibility of the crowds around Bobi Wine, you know, inspiring him to say, this thing is already predetermined. I'm sure they know it. Katana here knows it. Bobi Wine knows it. The NRM know it. That's the most scare. So they have put in place a system which enables this not to happen. Among other things is what I call measured episodes of violence. Constant reminders to Bobi Wine's crowd, don't even dare. Unprovoked tear gas canister. Unprovoked beating. Unprovoked. The idea is that it's not random. There's method to it. It's not random. It's a constant reminder that if you ever become insane and think about doing something more than this, you will get your bones broken. So don't even start. It's a reminder. Now, because there's so many players who are safeguarding the predetermined thing, so even himself even actually issued a statement where he said, if the biometric machine is not working at a particular polling station, that machine will not vote. This is the president. So there are so many centers of power, the EC, the UPDF, the police, State House, all of them are safeguarding this predetermined thing. This is why you hear sometimes conflicting instructions, conflicting orders. Stay and vote, don't stay and vote. The biometric machine is not working, that person will not vote. This is by the president. So here the EC issues a statement, M7 issues a statement, CDF issues a statement, all of sometimes in contradiction with each other. The entire idea is to safeguard a predetermined thing. Because when you say vote and go home, it's the first time we're getting this. We've gone through this election 5 times. But the possibility of people stepping out of the electoral circus and saying, let's do what countries elsewhere have done, is more urgent now. So this is why you hear an instruction like that. Vote and go home. And if you stay, you get your bones broken. Now, I really sympathize with the Electoral Commission. I should tell you that, Oscar. I see you here grilling Mr. Paul Bukenya, but then you ask him, where above his rank? Because you see, they're way above your rank. You don't know. Because, Oscar, I should tell you this. This man doesn't sit where decisions are taken to say, deploy. I'm sure I appeared at a show with the spokesperson of the Electoral Commission somewhere. The chairman. The chairman. This man. You see, we see when they picked up people in Nimbara, when they were crossing, one supporters, even EC was shocked. You see, this man, Julius Michunguzi, was simply apologizing. Said it is regrettable. We apologize. Because the election is being securitized. Once you say it's a security matter, electoral commission is already below. It's below their pay grade.
But he speaks well. He says for him, it's his candidates.
No, because it's part of the machine. Safeguarding the predetermined thing. It's part of the machine. He's a worker. The UPDF is summoned into the process, but already it's part of it.
Yeah.
And neither of these things have been declared.
So
I'm very sympathetic to Mr. Bukenya.
We're going to stop for a break. And Moses Biarahanga says, on the issue of voting and going home, the Electoral Commission gave guidance to avoid overcrowding at the polling station. Section 50 of the Electoral Commission Act gives it powers to make such guidance, notwithstanding what any other law says, as long as such guidance doesn't conflict with the Constitution. And it tells you, Duncan, under PDM, a parish received 100 million annually. 30% is for youth, 30% for women, 10% for the elderly, 10% for PWDs, and 20% for others, men, basically. And to date, 3.5 million households have received PDM. Okay? And a lot more, he says. We're here responding to some of the answers that Paul Bukenya of the Electoral Commission gave. Mr. Katana, you're on microphone.
I think the starting point, Oscar and listeners, is that the Electoral Commission is grappling with what all state institutions in Uganda are grappling with, the captivity of state institutions. And this particular one is a very tricky case because it is the power of Museveni that is at stake, not any other thing. And therefore, when the army says vote and go home, Electoral Commission must find a way of aligning with that proclamation, whether it is informed by law or otherwise. Number two is that, so in doing so, the Electoral Commission has also now descended to what you would call rule by law, not rule of law. And that's you see Moses talking about powers of the Electoral Commission, but you see powers must be exercised within parameters that are set by the law. When you read the Presidential Elections Act, particularly Section 31(4), it provides that people who have cast their votes are free to stay at the polling station. But in addition to that, when you look at, because you see, the role of a voter does not stop at casting the vote, because the voter is a citizen and a participant by law in the process. Even under Section 67, during the counting, an ordinary voter can raise a complaint when they are counting the votes. It doesn't have to be the agent or the candidate. So you see, the framers of the law intended to involve the voter in the entire process. And even having an agent or a candidate present does not take away the agency of the citizen. But most importantly is to note that in Uganda, we had cases of vote rigging? Yes, we have. On several occasions, the Supreme Court of Uganda has had the occasion to say, yes, there has been irregularities in these processes. Unfortunately, Electoral Commission is more enthusiastic about chasing people from the polling station than addressing the irregularities that have always left our processes tainted with irregularities. And so in the grand scheme of vote rigging, people sit and allocate themselves roles to play to make sure that is achieved. The people at the Electoral Commission are supposed to conduct a semblance of an election, make a declaration, and then now they are, because we bearing in mind the history of elections in the country and what has been happening, that's why we came up with the idea that the voter should be able to mobilize what we call the protest vote, should be able to mobilize others, vote, protect the vote, and if the Bukenyas, not him particularly, attempt to rig like they have always done, because even the Supreme Court has had the occasion to pronounce itself on that, then the people exercising their right under Article 29 of the Constitution should be able to to protest and demonstrate, because we are not shy about this, because it's well within, it's a protected right under our constitution. Now, because they are worried about that call, that's why now they are saying, because you realize that the NRM government over time has deprived people of their right to protest, unless you are protesting in favor of Museveni or was in PLU, you cannot protest. They have even gone ahead to make sure that the places where people use it to assemble, today you cannot go and rest at at Constitutional Square, because they worry that maybe you are going to carry out a protest. So because they are worried of all those things, they know what they have taken away from the people, their sovereignty, the right to choose who should be their leader. Now they must find ways of ensuring that they prevent them from expressing their dissatisfaction with these processes. The biggest crime that the Electoral Commission is committing is allowing to sanitize those irregularities. I have had the occasion, both as an institution and an individual level, to challenge the leadership of the Electoral Commission about this issue of telling people to go home. Electoral Commission has had all the time in the world to move government to amend the law and say after voting people should go home. But they did not amend the law. The law allows people who have participated in voting, who are interested, to start the polling station. But because Narwe Iso and Mhoza and the rest have said people should go home, even Byabakama must come out and confirm that people must go home, which is clearly outside the law. And because now they find themselves in that, and I even challenged him. I said, if you have concerns about our campaign of protest vote, both in that public gathering at Sheraton by the Netherlands Institute for Multi-Party Democracy, you are clothed with powers to summon us and we give you our side of the story. Now, the purported warning probably is in response to the challenge. Now, this warning ideally should have been, if it was addressed to us, because I first saw this in one of the online outlets. I shared with the leadership of the party, the Secretary General, the President, and everyone else, and it was news to all of us. Common sense and even rules of natural justice dictate that if Electoral Commission has any concerns about NUP, its presidential candidate, or any other person, they should summon us. We give our side of the story. But how do you issue a warning, which is a verdict, without listening to us? Because you see, people have always complained about the lack of neutrality of Electoral Commission. But in all these elections that we have had, Electoral Commission has always tried to put a semblance. But now, they have thrown shame out of the window. They are openly criticizing campaign slogans of candidates, which is very shocking. But also the manner in which they have conducted themselves, especially about, because people have been talking about how are these people being denominated. I think the context is to start from when the nomination process started. You had people being locked out of the nomination center in Bukenya, in Budiope, across in Kakumiro of Nabanja. And why is this happening? Is what I referred to earlier. And after that, you have had people being given money to get out of the race. You have also had cases, particularly in Ankole, where people were arrested, among other people that were arrested for no reason and put in jail. And among the people who were arrested were two ladies contesting in the district of Rwampara. So these people, under unclear circumstances, were released on condition that they withdraw from the race. And these are the figures that the NRM people want to come and brag about here, that they have 14 unopposed people. The same things they were complaining about Museveni was complaining about in 1980, people being stopped from going for nominations, people being kidnapped on the day of nominations, people being forced out of the race. This is what is happening. Why? Because it is part of the grand rigging scheme. For the NRM to be able to justify the figures they want to give themselves, the Moses must have an argument that, you see, even by the time we went to the polls, we already had 30 unopposed candidates. But number two, they know where you have parliamentary candidates, it is easier to deploy agents at polling stations. And for them to be able to rig, they must minimize the number of agents that you have at the polling stations. And by the way, on the question of agents, And partly why we're asking people to start the polling station, the culture has been, and gladly that Duncan has mentioned that we come from the same area. In some places, I can give an example of Isinjiro. Our agents on the day of polling were picked up from the polling stations and arrested. So the idea is that if Godwin Toko here is my agent and is picked, at least there is Serunkuuma, who is a supporter and has stayed at the polling station and will be able to raise a red flag. And so what happens when these people have been, and which electoral commission should be interested in, but unfortunately for them, they are interested in helping the ones who want to rig. They are part of the conspiracy. That you are going to have multiple people casting their votes. And now I know they are flagging around BVVK. But I can tell you that they will only deploy it in Uganda. In some places, they will say it has stopped. Even when the explanation is that, oh, now Mzee is insisting on this. But even that is a red flag, that it is the candidate. The wishes of the candidate is what is. So the agents are picked from the polling stations. Others are bought, like they are buying. And also with threats. And people have been asking that, why are these candidates easily bought? The factors are many. One of them is that most people are poor, contrary to the figures that these people are flashing around. Most Ugandans are poor because they are not buying them at $1 billion shillings. So if you have people running for parliament and they can be bought at 10, 20, 50 million, it shows you the state of the economy 40 years of NRM. But number two, this comes...
Yeah, I want to put to you that you'd put Mr. Walukaga as flag bearer. And he has gone ahead to court, and court has upheld the decision of the Electoral Commission. So maybe there is meat in the.
I spoke about Oscar. I spoke about captivity of state institutions. In my language, I said that what kills the old dog does not spare the puppy. So the death that has killed the Electoral Commission has not actually, the courts got these problems before the Electoral Commission. And I want to give a scenario. Unfortunately, the person I want to quote is dead. But at the beginning of this people power movement, there was, when they stopped Bobby Wine, the singer, from singing, which Museveni later confessed was his action, a decision. I went with him and the Secretary General to meet the then chairman of Uganda Human Rights Commission because we had lodged a complaint. And why I can confidently report is that there were even employees of the, 1 or 2 employees of the commission who still live. And he said, you guys, I can tell you that much as I have powers, I'm not going to summon the army or police for a hearing. The only thing I can do is to mediate. He even used the example of the torture that Bob Wine then had gone through. He said, you guys, when I saw the state in which you were, I got goose pimples. You are under military dictatorship. Nobody calls me here to tell me what to do, but I whip myself. That's medical. Yes. And so that gives you a picture of how all these institutions, courts of law, and I will give another example that Duncan here is familiar with. I'm sure, or I hope. When the Right Honorable Mama Babas was running for president, there are some young people in NRM that were mobilizing for him. They were arrested. They are now, I think, still, one is Ruzindana, another one, I've forgotten the rest. They were arrested and taken to court. So in the meeting that sat subsequently, they bragged, they said, you arrested us, but you were given bail. He said, I'm the one who allowed the courts to give you bail. You did not defeat me. So that gives you a clear picture that what the death that has killed Electoral Commission did not spare courts of law. So
Alugaba wants to unleash his laugh. But on another note, I know that Paul Bukenya doesn't have a lot of time. But do you think NUP, the language, are you provocative?
We are not.
Are you inciting violence? I mean, no. Bamwine was alleging that last week, and so we've missed having him here.
You know, Oscar, the old adage that the guilty run before they are chased. When our presidential candidate goes to and talks about tribalism and sectarianism, they say you are inciting people. But why don't you respond to the specifics and say you're lying? These are the facts. When he talks about state captivity, like I have talked about, they say you are using a bad language. So because they are worried.
The words, other words I say, when he says we want to be rebellious, we want to be rebels.
Yes, but to rebel is to oppose. That is the best, unless the NRM people have forgotten English, but to rebel is to oppose. It does not mean picking up arms. But for them, they are always, you see, in every election, part of the rigging scheme is to manufacture a crisis and use that crisis as a justification for using violence against the opponents of Museveni. And so now they must find a reason to show that we are running a campaign that is intended to disrupt public peace, because they want, first of all, to get buy-in from the moral voices in the NRM, if they are still there, but they also want to get justification for using violence against the opponents of Museveni, because that is one of the strategies they use to enable him get advantage. And I want to challenge, some of you have friends in security and you have their phone numbers. You consistently look at their status update on their phones. They clearly show that, especially the commanders, they show you whom they support. So they have taken a side. And for them to get a cover, first of all, for getting justification, but also because you have a dictator who also needs to borrow money from IMF, from World Bank, but also not to be isolated by international institutions. He must show that his deployment of the army, his deployment of violence as a strategy for gaining political advantage over his opponents is justified because of the actions of his opponents. Even when these actions do not exist, through propaganda, they will manufacture. And those complaints that you're hearing about, because when you say we are rebelling against this, grammatically, what's wrong with that? You are saying, I'm opposing this. But so they must find ways of framing it in a way that justifies their deployment of violence. In previous elections, you have seen them trying to connect Dr. Besigye, who was the candidate then, to LRA. When he came back here, the case failed flat. Why? Because even their intention is never to carry out an investigation, to try and have a person convicted. No. For them, their intention is to manage an election using security.
Yeah. Okay, we hear you. Let's go back to Paul here, Paul Bukenya. Send the microphone to Paul. Many questions for you.
Well, yes, Oscar. And, well, I'm here. And I hope I'll clarify and guide on issues raised by my colleagues here. We are not sanitizing anything. We are guiding on a process over which we have a mandate and control, and of course executing in accordance with the laws of Uganda. So we will enforce order at polling stations, but we will work with the people. So we need to understand and agree that, contrary to what my brother Serunkuuma here said, yes, the stations in the upcountry, as well as the ones in urban areas, Kampala and others, they all need to be such that they can facilitate voting. So that someone approaching a station is not worried that they are going to be intercepted and by a crowd or even, threatened to go away or anything like that. So keeping our stations in order is our responsibility all. And I think we will enforce that, as we always do. And I think Ugandans will accept that it is their responsibility to ensure that. And the critical thing is that your polling station opens, conducts polling, concludes polling, and counts and announces results at that polling station. So for that reason, make sure you follow the guidance that the Commission gives. So concerning our, I may not have picked one of those things. So the issue on polling station order is very clear. And of course, I want to assure Ugandans and listeners there that as we progress towards polling day, our voter education information now is about polling process. How to correctly mark the ballot paper, how to conduct yourself at a polling station, what you should wear when you're coming, because you're not supposed to come wearing slogans and other things that they are not allowed at a polling station, things like that. So we want the candidates to echo the same messages, including how they should conduct themselves, even within the vicinity of a polling station, because law and order and the public assembly, anything related to public assembly is not dispensed of because we're having elections. So everyone should have at their mind, behind their mind, or rather on their mind, that we want to ensure peaceful elections. And the way they can be ensured starts at a polling station, when there is order, when things can flow well, and of course, following the guidelines issued by the Electoral Commission. He talked about Electoral Commission as an institution that it's alive and well. It's not dead. That's why we have, like I mentioned, we nominated candidates. We are in charge of organizing, just a few days ago, even yesterday, we are receiving ballot papers for parliamentary candidates. I mentioned the figure here. My brother, since he comes from the National Unity Platform, and these are things that he knows, works closely with the party, up to 220 candidates nominated. But when we finish nomination, it's like when we do all these traditional functions, go and satisfy the requirements in the family of our in-laws, and then come to church. And then the priest still stands up and says, if there is anyone who has a reason why Mugabe should not wade with Pauline, and then someone comes and says, I have a reason, while you have satisfied everything. I think our decisions are not above the law. They can be reviewed. And that's why we see that some people have been challenged unsuccessfully. But Robert, you are right. Perhaps they should have come with figures and answers to show where, what you call, because I'm not supposed to call them opposition or whatever. What you call those candidates have been, the rulings have been in their favor. And this is not because the commission wakes up one day and says, Bwana Serunkuuma, today let us rule in favor of so-and-so. It's because of what has been presented, facts and evidence, and that's how a matter is determined. We were taken on that commission. How will you handle Nakawa? Nakawa has a very, very big MP and who also holds a very big responsibility in Parliament. But we say that this has to be had on its merit. And so when it was ruled in favor of the nominated candidates, there was a lot of excitement that side. But where others have not gone that way, we've taken the flak. I think there's a thankless job. But I think since there are opportunities for review of our decisions, that can be taken like that. But as Oscars, we said, the elections are on. They are really on. And we are set for them. We're now at the real final lap where we're taking those corners to get to the final, Akagua. Yeah. And the latest sign, of course, being the arrival of ballot papers. So we're still working and doing what is within our mandate, including working with other agencies, because we work with security, we work with Uganda Police to deliver elections. We don't have our own police. And we definitely need to work with police, just like we work with other stakeholders, like observers, the media, to deliver elections. I think that's in the course of our working together. If there are issues, then those are the issues we need to make sure we resolve them in a manner that satisfies the law, first of all, because it may not satisfy you, but then it needs to satisfy the law. That's why sometimes the public, doesn't take it the way it should be. And Serunkuuma,
Paul,
my brother
do you think all this is generally to do with the presidential election? Because it seems like for MPs, people are competing, and I've not received many complaints. Maybe Godwin Toko here, who has journalistic access, may know.
But presidential candidates have campaigned and they have achieved up to now, I think through the Christmas season, if I remember the reviews we were looking at on our chart, have a Gantt chart, they had received almost across all 8 presidential candidates, up to 75% of their planned campaign schedules executed. Were there issues along the way? Yes. Did we set out to 29th September? We set out to campaign across the country. We developed a schedule. We harmonized it. Part of harmonization, Godwin, is also how a candidate moves. The finer details, of course, are done at district level. But part of harmonization is how a candidate moves. You are in a district, but the district is big. What specific areas are you going to be in within a district? Sometimes the details, finer details are worked out with district teams. But to come back to the general picture, Oscar and our listeners, candidates have achieved, as by Christmas, up to 75% of the planned district coverage. The rest pending the 2 weeks that we have up to the 13th. So in terms of executing the campaign at presidential level, it has also gone well. If you isolate the issues that we have seen clashes, the commission has taken action. The commission has written and also summoned. So besides writing, we've also summoned physically and engaged the stakeholders on issues of concern during the campaign. So I think on that matter, we've taken responsibility and we continue to take responsibility because we want it to end well. We launched the roadmap. There are key milestones that are ticked off. It results and ends in the polling day. We want the polling day also to go well, which is why we are guiding on issues of concern. Yeah.
And the machines, the voting machines, what is the now?
Now, in 2016, we first used the biometric voter verification kit to help verify the identity of voters on polling day. We used the same in 2021. The biometric voter verification kit has now been enhanced for purpose of this election. And what is now present are additional features that will, where someone is not able to be, first of all, the principle is that everyone is going to be biometrically identified. So we must be able to read your fingerprints. We got your fingerprints from the database when you registered. You gave us all the 10 fingerprints. But also, in addition to fingerprints, where we sometimes get challenges, we're also going for facial recognition, because sometimes people are not able to present readable fingerprints because of the work they do, or in some cases because of a disability. But mostly because of the work we do, the threads are not on and it becomes a problem. Someone says, or even intentionally, someone comes with a lot of Vaseline and they can't be read by a machine. So now the iris is a unique feature. It will be read as well. So it is enhanced to ensure that at least we verify you. But also maybe an enhanced feature is the verification of the ballot paper itself. So now, different from what we've been doing in the past, now when you come to a polling station, the ballot papers assigned to that polling station are first scanned. So that unit is going to register that these are my ballot papers for my polling station called Capital FM polling station. So that every voter, before they go to vote, they're issued with a ballot paper which is also scanned, and they vote, cast their ballot. At the counting, before we count, we first verify that these are the ballot papers we issued out. So that is to eliminate a situation where someone can introduce or come in and stuff ballot papers. So it is something that we've informed our stakeholders about, so that they support the upgrade and support the transparency, so that we achieve a credible election at the end of the day. So the biometric is what we've used before, but now it has been enhanced to perform stricter verification processes than just a fingerprint.
Godwin Toko.
Yes.
Paul Bukenya speaks well.
Very well. If I was the president, I would make this guy the spokesperson of government. He's really good at his job. But
is the issue more at presidential level, especially regarding NUP and NRM?
Yes and no. So one, the presidential one seemed to make more news, but specifically with NUP and NRM, it has also been at the parliamentary level. Oscar, you see, we've had people dying in these elections, and some of them have died. There was a gentleman who died in Zimbabwe. Is it Remiyaga? The Chechkubo versus Rashande, that race. So yes, even the parliamentary level, there are some hotspots where things always boil over, where either two very powerful candidates of the NRM, or when you come to the central region here, where the opposition candidate seems very formidable and is putting up a very credible challenge, or to retain either their seat or to challenge an existing NRM candidate. So I think it all goes down to where there is that kind of contest. He talked of Nakawa. Yeah, I have a lot of respect for my brother Ivan Bowe. I looked at what he was raising and I thought, if the commission gives this, it will it is going to shock me. I knew that they were not going to give it. So of course he will use things like that and say, yeah, but here we did this and that. So
what was the problem of Nakawa?
Naming, I think there was Nakawa Division West, and then he said, and then the candidate said Nakawa West, something like that. So they missed the word division in the middle, and they said that all the other candidates should be nullified and they be declared unopposed because they applied for the wrong constituency. Technically, yes, there is a point. But realistically, is the commission going to do that? It looks like it was not going to do that. So back to your question, I think it will always depend on the nature of the constituency, the contest, yeah, and this is not just NUP and NRM. I'm sure you're going to see some areas more in eastern Uganda where FDC seems to have, in the Bugishu area and Teso, where FDC seems to have a strong foothold. There are going to be clashes if they're not, and because many times they don't get to the news since they are at the lower level, where you'll see that the candidates are clashing and it has nothing to do with NUP, probably NRM and FDC. But before, let me just to clarify something Moses said earlier, something you read, where he said that Section 50 gives the Electoral Commission. Section 50, right? Yeah. I've looked at Section 50. Section 50 doesn't say that of the Presidential Elections Act. Instead, it talks about what an invalid vote is. Maybe he could clarify on the specific section he meant, and I would still be shocked to learn that there is a law that gives the chairperson of the commission power to overwrite the existing law and make his own declarations. Because normally, the law is the law. The Electoral Commission, Parliament can change the law. There are circumstances where the law can be overridden by the Constitution, which is a higher law, but giving such power to the chairperson of the commission, that would be very shocking. Yes.
I mean, you're the lawyer here. You could have said what Section 50 says.
Yeah, that's what I've just said. Section 50 talks about voter verification. Votes to be treated as invalid. It's a long section. I can't read it all because it take a lot of time. But yeah, that's what talks about what makes an invalid vote, double ticking and things like that. The things Bukenya is teaching people about right now. If someone ticks and the tick goes outside the box. Yeah. It's the Ugandan thing. People always wait for last minute and then they jump all out. So yeah, that's the section what talks about. Maybe unless he clarifies and says what particular section he meant.
Okay. Godwin Toko also challenges Benjamin that do you believe that Walukaga was wrongly denominated? Does he have the necessary papers?
Again, Moses is wrong.
Unfortunately.
Yes, he's wrong because this particular law gives the commission powers on polling day to act in under circumstances that are unforeseen. So, for instance, it can extend voting time if, say, like rain happened in the morning and people started voting late. So, it's not powers to override the law. It's powers to change circumstances in those particular situations. I hope you can clarify again. We may end up spending the show clarifying going back and forth. But
Abigawa, Duncan Abigawa, are you people in NRM interested in the voting machines?
Very much so. And
because Serunkuuma says it is only for Buganda.
To quote Katana's own words, the old adage of the guilty run before when nobody is chasing them. Katana and company have been complaining about vote rigging. And here we are saying we have got a solution to vote rigging. VK machines. One vote, one person, one fingerprint. So now why the Katana is now complaining that you see it has been brought for Buganda, for ETC. Can we wait and try out the new system? And then my brother here, Yusuf, I want us at one of the capital gangs, maybe in March, maybe in April. He's a researcher. He's been talking vote rigging and so forth and so forth. You identify a constituency, work with the Electoral Commission and other stakeholders, do forensic audit of one constituency. You can pick something, Nakaseke North or somewhere in Ginja. Presidential results, parliamentary results of that constituency. We come here and look at them vis-a-vis what the Electoral Commission is going to announce. We should avoid these blanket statements of the election is predetermined and so forth, because we cannot prove them. It's just general talk. But you as a researcher, do a forensic study of one constituency after we have voted, then we see.
But why do I have to do that when the courts of this country pronounced themselves on that matter already?
Why? Then Katana and his protest vote, he has been saying, the protest vote is about people. You vote, you stay at the station, you get the vote. But Bukenya here knows there are polling stations in overpopulated areas like Nansana, like Boyogerere, Chereka, etc., where I'm very sure one polling station has probably 2,000 voters. You know, they say this booth is from alphabet A up to like HE, then from K up to something. You find one polling station has around 3 voting booths.
4 areas, yes.
You know. So now, if whoever voted stayed at that polling station, 2,000 people, I mean, are you able to control that crowd with probably 1-2 constables deployed
But if they
at
came back
that
after-
polling
they
station?
came back at the time of counting.
We have seen in the last election, I think, Paul can correct me, we had scenarios in Nansana, scenarios in Makinde, where police officers were overrun by the voters during the counting process. So what the Katanas are preaching, that people should vote and stay and so forth, I think it's some form of anarchy, because you don't know what it can lead to. We should be encouraging people to vote and go home, vote, be orderly, not vote and protest, you know. Yes, because ideally I see that's what protest vote is about. Then the issue of the presidential vote, the parliamentary vote, where is the contest? People like Moses, I'm glad he's listening in. He has been the president's agent for some time. And he knows how much President Museveni despises electoral malpractices. Because internally, he's always discouraging the NRM people from engaging in that. In Rwampara, he's on record.
You need to share the national theatre. You can pull it off.
No, these are facts. In Rwampara, he's on record. He criticized in Rwampara himself how the NRM primaries had been conducted, and then I think one of the candidates was trying to play some games to cheat the person who had won the NRM flag. And this person, who's actually the incumbent, who was, I think, trying to use other methods, was forced to publicly get out of the race and apologize. The president goes up to that extent to show you how much he despises this malpractice. He tells NRM MPs that you must work hard and achieve your victory, no shortcuts. Paul was talking about candidates covering probably 70%, 75% of the areas they were supposed to cover for campaigns. I'm very sure President Museveni now is at over 80% because he's left with the greater Kampala metropolitan area to campaign in the remaining 2.5 weeks before we vote. The man has had 2 rallies per day as a rule of thumb. Every day has done 2 rallies without pause at his age to show you how he's committed towards this electoral process. Because as somebody could have said, maybe I can be in one place and address radio stations and use other methods to campaign, but he has gone to every district of this country.
Yeah,
so
sometimes in the evenings he's done radio shows as well.
And in the evenings he has time.
On that one you can't fault him.
Exactly.
He even started campaigning well before the campaign time, when you traverse the entire country. So he's been consistent.
Yes.
That's not a compliment. He's actually throwing water at you.
No, it's a compliment.
No, it is.
He started campaigning before the elections began. He's throwing you under the bus.
This was the official.
And the same time everyone else was getting thrown in jail for doing that.
Duncan can't read irony.
No.
You're telling him his man has been abusing the law and he's enjoying it.
No, this was the official campaign.
It was. No. Is the president has always.
Gone round.
I mean, is mandated as the head of state to do those tours, visit government projects, address the citizens wherever he has gone. So you cannot say the president can't do that.
He's not
because we are
mandated as the head of state. Anyone should do that. The problem is he does that and the police beat up everyone else who even attempt to do that. You get it? So it would have been a level playing field if he did that as the head of state, but also allowed other people to do that because no law stops them anyway. So you see the irony there.
No,
I think we always say through
before the elections,
but Duncan can't see.
No, before the elections, I remember Chaguranyi also did some rounds across the
And
country.
then he was stopped. Yes.
But he did some rounds.
He was stopped. I think at the third or fourth, they stopped
Yeah,
him. The
the
police
third.
stopped him for no reason. So that's the problem.
So
Oscar, you see the problem you brought for that? He's not reading irony. He's going with it.
He's
In conclusion,
in conclusion, Prof here is very excited by the numbers we have seen. And Katana is worried about the BVK machines.
No, actually, that's inaccurate. Our complaints.
hold on, let him
Yes.
finish. Yeah.
We have 2 weeks to voting. I can tell you that Prof's exciting crowds will not translate into votes,
I agree with you on that.
except
I agree.
Except in
President Museveni
Buganda.
also has large crowds.
Except in Buganda, where the opposition is represented up to the lowest level. They have a councillor, they have a mayor of a town council, they are able to, oversee the voting. Now, when you go in the countryside, the opposition candidates have been there. They could have had exciting crowds in some places, including Barara and so forth. But here is the problem. When the Katanas leave those campaign grounds, they do not have candidates who are vested in the election at lower levels, because you don't have people running for councillors, for mayor, for local councils. Because those are the very people who help you to protect, to guard the vote and so forth. So you do not have elected committees for the opposition parties in most of those places. And in most cases, you're not going to be able to appoint the agents. So even if the BVK machines are deployed and used appropriately in the polling stations outside Buganda, you're still going to cry foul, because you don't have these 3 layers of people to verify what is on ground. You don't have agents, you don't have candidates there, you don't have committees. So that is what is mostly going to happen. And then we are going to be here in the post-mortem of Professor here, throwing words and so forth. That's what I envisage after the 15th of January.
Oscar,
You're on mic.
if I could jump in quickly here, Benjamin here spoke about the amount of legroom the NRM has in amending constitutions. The 20 meters, stay 20 meters away, the assumption that the framers of the constitution didn't understand that there could be larger crowds that might overrun the polling station. If that is the understanding in the NRM, and the NRM has a history of often amending the constitution, they would have amended this provision. They could just take it out. It is within their power to amend or delete. They would have done so. Instead, contradicting themselves at this moment and issuing conflicting orders. In light of that too, Oscar, there's an article which is very enabling for the opposition. Article 29, Section 1D, which allows them to protest and demonstrate peacefully unarmed. It's a constitutional right for you to be discontent with the way things have gone, to assemble, unarmed, protest, demonstrate. The way the NRM machine is so frantic about this provision, you see, even people in NUP have been unable to articulate it. It's their provision. They could actually proudly articulate and say, if we feel aggrieved in this electoral process, they should put 7 on high alert. If we feel aggrieved in this process, it is within our right to protest, to demonstrate, to assemble unarmed. It's within their right. But you see, they are not articulating it, and people in the NRM are actually articulating it on their behalf because they are more prepared for that. But again, so the same thing. If you don't like people to protest and demonstrate unarmed, you could amend this provision too. The NRM has a history of amending things which don't work in its favor. You have the majorities in parliament. I don't understand why they haven't amended this provision too. If people are going to protest, it is within the law. They would have broken no law. There's an article which protects them to do this. If you feel this is unfair to you, amend it because you're in power. You see, it bothers me that we're beating people for provisions like that. And also what bothers me at the same time is that Benjamin and group have failed to articulate this proudly. They should be going out there and telling their voters, stay. If we feel agreed, we are going to protest.
I've not been listening to us.
Because at some point I felt people in the NRM actually articulating it on their behalf. They articulated proudly. It said, this is what the protest vote means. We are going to protest if the selection is stolen. If you feel aggrieved, we're going to pour on the street, unarmed, demonstrate and protest our group against the unarmed. Unarmed. And also, Oscar, this is interesting. You see, modern revolutions are often unarmed. This is what the NRM fears. Modern revolutions have been unarmed. Tahrir Square unarmed. The singing women in Khartoum unarmed. Modern revolutions are unarmed. You see, this is what bothers the establishment more. Benji gave the story of Medical Gua saying nobody calls me, but I whip myself. And I want to tell a story which happened at the funeral. This is parental guidance, Oscar. There's nothing vulgar here. The late chair of the Electoral Commission, Haji Aziz Kasuja, met an elder, a friend of his. I read the story in the Observer. At a funeral. It had to be a funeral because at a funeral you're burying somebody, so you're most likely tempted to tell the truth. Because you know the nervousness around the burial of an elder. And a friend asks him, Haji Aziz, are you sure you're going to declare Kizza Besigye winner of this election if he actually wins it? And Aziz Kasuja turns to his elder and asks him, Kakati bwe nangirira Besigye nzirewa. And that's the story that Benja has told us. That even Medical Gua told them, you see, nobody calls me here. But if I summon the police or the military, do you think I can, it's within my rights to do that, but do you think I can do it? Yeah. Haji Kasuja asked them, Oscar, no, people are giving long press statements. I have a couple of things I need to say.
You need to say them very quickly because time is not on our side. In fact, I wanted to ask Abigaba on that very note. I've been asking.
There's a point.
I'm going to give you your 2 minutes, but I've been asking senior NRM people that, as you said, as Serunkuuma said, that there's a big feeling that President Museveni is going to win, and
he's going to be declared winner.
Presidential candidate Bobi Wine will not win, will not be declared winner. And there's a Dave here who has sent a message saying they even have some positions unfilled. So why is it necessary to beat them? It's something that is very puzzling. And I'd allow Yusuf more time if he addresses it more like that.
Is it mine or Duncan's?
I'm going to spare you.
Because I want to say something about Duncan and Paul. You know, Oscar, you're good at irony. The problem, these members of this panel, Bukenya and Duncan, are unable to read irony. You said to Bukenya that he speaks well, which was actually ironic because when he said he speaks well, it means you're flawless in obfuscation, in making difficult things sound good. You're good at sanitizing. That's what he meant. He threw, and you did the same to you did the same to Duncan. Yeah, and Duncan was riding along when you told him his man was abusing the law. But Oscar, here's my major problem, because you see, I'm thinking beyond Museveni, because at some point Museveni will have to leave. There's no choice about that. Museveni will have to leave. But you see, we will struggle to develop a seriousness as a country. We are not serious. We bury our heads in the sand. You see, we have reduced politics, which is an actual thing of governing the country's human and natural resources, to real politic. We are good at making up things. We're good at, winning arguments. You see, this man here is well spoken, but at winning arguments. So why even when you throw iron at him, he's not able to read it. He rides along as if you're throwing him a compliment. That we've reduced our politics to, how do I beat them at this game? How do I make up a random accusation? How do I invent history? You see, he said, even Bob Wine was going around the country. They stopped him, and he can't respond to that. You see, we will be searching for serious to say, this is our country. How do we build it without playing games? Because it's something I have with people in the opposition. We are in a space where we know we are into a thing which is predetermined. But we can't stop and say, why are we in it in the first place? How do we build this country? Why don't we, the plea I've made many times, Oscar, why don't we sit down and say, Mr. Museveni, we know we can't beat you here and there. How do we build this country forward? You see, so it's moving forward, Oscar. there will be a search for seriousness, to speak honestly and with a straight face, without playing this obfuscating game. This man here, Bukenya, this man here, Duncan.
Thank you, Yusuf.
They're so sworn into obfuscating.
Benjamin.
Yeah, and I'll begin with the question you asked, that why are they beating people? Though I disagree with your idea of winning. But maybe declaration, yes. The beating is intended to reinforce fear. Because the leadership, Museveni and his team, are alive to the injustices that they are carrying out in this process and even before this process. And they know for sure that people would want to exercise their right to challenge these injustices through protest, which we have been saying, and it has been emphasized by Yusuf here. And so for them to be able to keep the population under fear, they must show them the extent to which they are willing to go in terms of using violence. But number two, and Duncan in his concluding remarks has spoken about the absence of candidates for local council, and that articulation of his simply gives you the reasoning behind their actions, even before elections, of ensuring that the opposition does not carry out activities in these places, activate committees, because they know that once you have the committees, then it disadvantages them. But number two, his hypothesis is inaccurate, because even in the previous election, with all the challenges that happened, we had our candidate beating the candidate of NRM Museveni in places where we didn't even have a candidate, didn't even have a committee, didn't even have any person identifying as the leader of NUP in that particular area. So the absence of these committees does not necessarily mean that we cannot beat them in those places. Number three, I want to correct the record, because I think both Bukenya and Duncan, who are directly and indirectly from NRM, seem to suggest that we are complaining about the deployment of technology. We have never been opposed to the idea of deployment of technology. We have been making a case for two things. One is transparency in the whole process. If you ask the Electoral Commission to tell you how this system was procured, you will end up at a security agency like ISO, which is an extension of the political machinery of NRM. But number two, we have talked about the likely scenario, because even in 2021, what the technology they deployed worked in some places it wasn't deployed. So we have seen RDCs, for example, in Chiruhura, in RDC of Mbara district. We have seen the candidate in Remiyagarwashande and others saying voting is going to take place on the table. There is no secret ballot. These are the concerns the Electoral Commission should be focused on, but they are focused on efforts to challenge those issues. We have had cases where you have 100% voter turnout in Chiruhura and other places. Nobody had died, nobody was sick, and all of them voted for the same person. How is this technology going to address those concerns in those places? So those are the concerns we have about this.
Says, will it detect multiple voters?
Exactly. This technology. Our concern is not, we are not opposed to deployment of technology, but also how much information, because if, for example, there is challenging an election and you're doing auditing, how much information does the public, do the candidates have about this technology? And at what point does auditing of the process start, and where does it end?
Oscar, a quick comment on the machine. They say the machine doesn't answer any of our grievances. The machine is voter verification, voter identity verification. And in the previous elections, the grievances of this election have not been about identifying the voters, ballot staffing.
Just one,
so the machine answered the wrong question.
One last point, Oscar. Yusuf here, when he was talking about the results being tampered with, and Duncan was saying, I challenge you to go and do research. After the 2021 general elections, Electoral Commission attempted to publish results. Yes. And people challenged them with the declaration forms from their respective constituencies. And they were forced to delete what they had posted. Up to now, we have been asking the Electoral Commission to avail us the final register. They have not done so. The law requires the Electoral Commission to give us tally sheets for every district, but they will never do that. To put declaration forms in a conspicuous place at a polling station, they never do that.
Katana, just to add on to that, because I also looked at those figures. We tried to do some work around them at Greece, where I was working at that time. And shockingly, there were about 10 polling stations in Wakiso where Katumba you know, Katumba the candidate. Katumba Oye. Katumba Oye would have like 110 votes. Bob Wine has 3. Within what Kisan was saying, there is absolutely no way. You get. So yeah, if you want to verify that, you're taking a very big risk, Duncan. I advise you to go slow.
So
No, he knows it will not happen.
Let me allow you to
Oscar,
conclude the show.
I thank the panelists, the gangsters for the day, for their inputs here and their contributions. Yeah. I think a number of issues were raised here. Try to note them down to guide on the same. The polling stations, actually, Duncan, we reviewed them, and that's why we saw an increase in the number of polling stations to reduce on the numbers so that we can achieve a number that can go through voting process, actually eventually using the BVVK. And now the maximum is 600, and we don't go beyond 700. So that is done to ensure that people can vote from 7 and close voting at 4 p.m. and we go through the processes during day as much as possible when there's still daylight, although we provide lanterns and solar lamps for the dark. So we have Benja, we procured BVVK for the polling stations, and there are 50,000 plus polling stations. We procured 100,000 BVVK machines plus, which are enough to cover a unit that is used for that day and the spare, so that when we get any technical issue, we can address it. The objective is to ensure that the BVVK works, which is what we're working towards, because it will help address Bwana Serunkuuma. The verification of voters has been a key grievance. Achieving one person, one vote. Because when you talk about staffing or anything like that, that's what it means. And that's why the kit, like I was telling you, one of the functions is to verify ballot papers on issuance. And before we count, we still go through the process, scan every ballot paper. It has a QR code. It's a very fast process. These are the ballot papers that were issued, or there is a ballot paper that we cannot account for.